Okay, I think we're live. Good morning, hello, depending on where in the world you are. In language learning, motivation, as I have often said, motivation and time, those are the two key factors. You have to be motivated and you have to spend the time. And if we are learning on our own, or even if we're learning in a classroom environment with a teacher, sometimes we have the feeling we're not making any progress. So it's easy to lose that motivation. So let me just mute this. So today I want to show you how keeping track of your activity through various statistics can be tremendously helpful in keeping you motivated and giving you a sense of how you're doing. And I'm going to do that by reviewing some of my own statistics in different languages, as well as the statistics of two people who contacted me and said that I could look at their statistics. So let's get, that's about it. We went on for a good hour last time. I'm happy to answer questions. It makes for a long video on YouTube. Some people may not want to stick around for the whole hour. That's fine too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk for a while here, and then I'm going to try to answer any questions that you may post. And it's, again, the world of technology. I have the sort of YouTube video of this on my iPad just beside me here, so that I can see the questions and comments, which I can't see while I'm making the video here on my computer. So let us get going with sharing the screen. So hopefully you can all see my screen. This is the last item that I was doing in Arabic, but let us go to, so where do we find our statistics on LingQ? We go to my little picture here, and I go down to my profile. Whoops, I lost it. There we go, profile, and up comes these statistics. And of course, I can change them. I can look at them the last 7 days. I can look at known words or other items. I can look at it at different time periods, different languages, and so forth. Now, before I review my statistics, I'm going to review the statistics of two of my listeners here who contacted me. So let's make sure first of all, Edward Finch sent me his spreadsheet that he keeps. And so what he does, he keeps meticulous records on a spreadsheet. When he started, day one, what he considered to be his motivation level, he presumably assigns that some subjective number, how many minutes he listened, how many minutes he read, how many minutes he spoke, writing, total links created, total known words, and a little comment on how he felt that day. I mean, this is, to my mind, this is extreme. It doesn't take a lot of time to do. And I think even creating this spreadsheet is in itself motivating. You look forward to, you're motivated to put more down because that's going to indicate to you that you are in fact making progress. And so he's able to graph these down here. One thing about language learning, which is very important, is that, you know, unlike some activities, the more time you put in, the better you will get. Even if you are not, if you don't realize that you're making progress, you are, because you are exposing your brain to more and more of the language. The brain cannot help but learn. So activity level equals learning, even if you don't notice it. I feel this is, like golf, for example, doesn't matter how much time I put into golf, I don't improve. Because I can't seem to master the sort of, you know, body muscle memory thing that I need in order to perform well on the golf course. But I know that in all of my language learning, the more time I put in, the higher my activity level, the better. So this was Edward. Now, let us look at another person. Well, that one was mine here. What did we do here? That was, okay, we go here. So Rough JP, that's his username. He sent me his username. By the way, if you go to the community here, I'll just step back a step. here we are. If you go to the community, you can put someone's name in here, Rough JP, search for them, and he's learning Japanese. Here we see the list of people. This is their street. This is their known words. So you can actually follow what other people are doing. So that's also motivating to know where you stand vis-a-vis other people. So here's Steve. I'm not doing Japanese, so I'm at rank 158. I have a few things I've done in Japanese, but not very much. But if we look up Rough JP, and sometimes there's more than one person with the same or similar username. So we get to Rough JP, and we see that in this last week, he has 32 known words, 95 links. So he's on track with his links. He hasn't moved many links to sort of known, or hasn't learned many. That means that he hasn't been doing a lot of, reviewing, which is fine. To me, creating the links is where you start the process. You get words into your database, which you then will meet again and again and gradually learn them. So that's a good level of activity. His words of reading is up to snuff. I would spend more time listening. You'll see my statistics in a short while, but I spend a lot more time listening rather. Writing and speaking, again, I have started increasing my amount of speaking. Again, if he does that on italki, it won't be tracked at LingQ. So we'll look at that as it affects, my activity. So this is achievements. He ranked 107 on an active challenge. So these are some of the other ways. You can look at his avatar for those who like the avatar. These are different ways that measuring your level of activity helps to keep you motivated. So this is last week. Let's look at last month. So last month, even here, he's creating a lot of links. Learned a few, but still no listening. And he's very strong on the reading. So I would say that I would balance it with more listening. See, no listening, at least not listening that's tracked at LingQ. He may be listening, say, on iTunes, on his MP3 player, but I recommend that if you are studying lessons, and he is, because we are tracking, he's reading a lot, so he's obviously going through lessons. He should be creating a playlist and adding the lessons that he studies to a playlist, and then listening on the playlist. And that way you can be sure that the listening is tracked. Even if you listen to the lesson while reading it, it will track as listening time. So my advice to Raphael here is do more listening. All right. So now let's move to my statistics. Where are we here? Oh, by the way, I just signed up for a lot of conversation, both in Farsi or Persian and in Arabic. But let us go. So in order to find my profile, we'll go here. And so now this, what I call the swoosh, is not available when I visit somebody else's account. So I cannot see Raphael's, swoosh graph, but it will be added in the future. So you actually will in the future have the opportunity to go and visit somebody else's profile and see their historic level of activity. So if we look at me in Persian, or remember now that I am studying two languages at the same time, Persian and Arabic. So in the last 7 days, so therefore I'm not going to be maintaining my streak because I'm going 3 days on, 3 days off. So I lose my streak. Okay. One of the things we have instituted will institute is the ability, if you break your streak, you can use your coins to repair your streak, but that's coming later on. So in Persian, I have added in this last week, I've added 128 known words. I've created a lot of links. I've learned a lot of links. So this is because in Persian, I have a lot of links that I have created, which I'm now slowly converting to known. I listened 3.3 hours. My reading is down a bit, no writing, and I spoke 1 hour of speaking in this past week. if I look at, let's say, now, these are my statistics that I can read, but what I find very instructive is to look at the graph here. So if, for example, when did I start learning Persian? So what we see here is that I got quite interested in it in sort of, July, August here. And then in preparation for going to Morocco, I stopped doing anything. And then once I returned from Morocco, towards the end of December and certainly into January, I got more active in Persian. But now that I decided to combine it with Arabic, it's off a little bit. But all of this activity is always cumulative. So I think this is very important, let's look at another. Let's LingQ creative, for example. So we'll see the same pattern again. Active initially, not so active, quite a bit more active, but it's all constantly adding. So to the extent that you are active, it's all adding to your ability in the language. And if we look at Arabic, let's see, here we are. Arabic, here again, if you see my all-time activity in Arabic, you see that I initially got interested in December of 2017, kind of messed around a little bit, got quite keen around March. And so I have these little, periods, spurts of activity. I'm at a lower level now because I'm combining it with Persian. And if I look at, let's say, listening, which is perhaps the best indicator of my level of activity, you'll see that I got quite interested in listening here, and I've been listening somewhat less here. But all of the while, my listening activity is just more and more exposure to the language. And I know from experience, let's say if I go for reading, I know from experience that all of the reading I'm doing in spurts, all of the listening that I'm doing is going to enable me to learn the language. If I look at, for example, perhaps the first language that I started at LingQ is Russian. So you can see here, now here the numbers get a little bit difficult to read, but I started Russian at LingQ in July of 2007. And I have had these spurts of activity in Russian. And so if I look at just the spurts of, say, reading, and of course, this is only the reading that's at LingQ. Now, I did some reading outside of LingQ as well. But it's all cumulative. And so if I look at my known words total, here again, you'll see that I was very active here in this period, but my known words in Russian is now up to some 80 or 90,000. So in time, it can become a lot of known words if you stay with the program. So, okay. Now, the thing about listening in Russian is we didn't track the listening initially. I was doing most of my listening simply on iTunes, and it wasn't being tracked. So this is not really a good indicator. And recently, since about 2010, I've hardly been doing any listening to Russian because I've been active in other languages. So, and the fun thing is if you're doing more than one language, I can look at my Czech, for example. So here again, very active at an early period, and I haven't done much since. If I look at, known words, again, a similar pattern, but the point is that it's cumulative. So even if I was very active 2011, 2012, had a brief spurt in here, maybe when I went to the Bratislava Polyglot conference, but essentially haven't done much with Czech since. I can look up my Korean level activity, which is one that I've been off and on Korean. Okay, so here again, spurts of activity here and there, but it's all cumulative. And I can go back to my Korean, and all of this, cumulative effect of the known words or the listening, it'll still be there. And very quickly, I'll recover to where I was before. So that's kind of a brief presentation of, just touching on the issue of statistics and how it can be motivating. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if, now let's get over here and see what sorts of questions I've got here. And maybe I should, no, okay, now maybe I will, we can leave the screen that way. Let's just move this over here. All right. So, greetings from Venezuela, blah, blah, blah. Hello, I'm from Brazil. South America seems like a great place to visit. Yes. Welcome. Edwin Finch, what's up, going? Good morning. Let's see. Have I ever thought of learning a dead language like Latin? We have Latin at LingQ. I may. The trouble with languages is that there's so many that I could be interested in learning. It's just a matter of deciding where to spend my time. Right now, I'm focused on Arabic, Persian, and perhaps Turkish. What should I be doing for learning Japanese? Just do the range of things that we recommend you do at LingQ. Listen, read, review, speak. How many hours of listening do you have in Russian? Okay, I can't comment on that because most of the listening I did was in fact, I'll put Russian up here. Let's go to Russian, but it's not a good indicator because we didn't have the playlist for most of the time that I was learning Russian. So this doesn't, but you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. This is known words. So the listening is not going to be an accurate indicator. Not going to be an active in. I would say thousands of hours. I listen every day. I would download. First of all, I listen to audiobooks of Russian classic novels. I downloaded interviews off the internet, thousands of hours. For work, was it necessary to take a test to prove your fluency in language? The only time I had to take a test was, well, two, obviously. I studied in France at l'Institut d'études politiques, and so I was taking tests in French, but the test was about international relations, international economics, whatever, but it was in French. And then when I studied Mandarin Chinese as an employee of the Canadian government, I had to take what is known as the British Diplomatic Service exam. And so in Mandarin, I had to translate from English to Chinese, Chinese to English, write a diplomatic note, and all this kind of stuff. Your voice is so clearly hearing to me. Good. Damn, that's mine. So cool. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Mr. Steve. Do you guys often update the LingQ contents, especially Chinese contents? Okay. With regard to the Chinese or any language content, we cannot be creating content all the time for 33 languages, I think it is. So we have created some, like the mini stories, but otherwise we rely on people who offer content to us. Sometimes it's language sites that want give us a sampling so that people will visit them, or members who you know, contribute. They speak to their partner, friend, spouse, wife, husband, whatever, child, and then they transcribe it and give it to us. We definitely want to get more content. Please, if you can provide us additional content. The other thing is we would like to sell high quality content. And so we have approached different publishers, and they're often slow in getting back to us, but we would love to be able to sell good quality content. I think people would buy it integrated with the LingQ system. I've had to do this for my own use, you know, importing Assimil and you know, L'Arabe Moderne and these contents. But it's time consuming, and I can't share those because we don't have the copyright. Okay, no, I can't. Sort of Joseph asks if I can. No, I mean, I'd have to have it ahead of time. It's simply not possible for me now to analyze your statistics. Where did you post yours? Okay, yeah, people who had their statistics looked at. If this is something people want to do, they can email me, and make sure you tell me your username and which language you want me to look at. It doesn't matter. If you're doing more than one language, I can also do that. So, okay, hey, I'll first time watching, blah, blah, blah. If you're helping, I'm going to start practicing speaking. Yeah, speaking is good. I have found that and I mentioned this elsewhere, speaking does several things. First of all, it helps you create content, because a good tutor will give you a report with all the words and phrases you struggled with, and the really good tutors give you a audio recording so that you can you know, really get at the words and phrases that you struggled with. Okay. So I have a question specifically for French speakers. I'm an intermediate learner who's been doing a lot of lessons, but I need to read more. Any book recommendations? You know, I often get asked that kind of question. It depends on your interests. Find something of interest to you. And if you can import it into LingQ, so much the better. And there's lots of e-text out there that you can import, and then you can really work on learning the words and phrases. Okay. What ways do you practice speaking aside from a tutor? Only with my tutors. If I get to, now, I have a Persian tutor, 2 Persian tutors. They're very good. 1st of March is my wife's birthday. We've invited a number of our neighbors over. One of them, a couple, are originally from Iran. So I will be springing my limited Persian on this couple. But I have relatively little opportunity to use the language. So mostly I speak with my tutor online. And the advantage, if it's a LingQ tutor, is that you get a detailed report with a lot of words and phrases. As I said, do you think learning Hanja is important in Korean? Of course, I have Hanja from having studied Chinese and Japanese, so I miss the Hanja in Korean. I wish there were more. I wish they still use the Hanja, the Chinese characters. And when I look a word up, when I'm doing Korean, I will go to the dictionary and get the Hanja and import it into the hint, so that anyone coming behind me who looks up that word will find the Chinese characters with it. I think it's extremely helpful, but if someone has no background in Chinese or Japanese, then perhaps it's not that important. How different is the grammar between the Romance languages? I would say that the grammar is like, in each of these languages, each of them has like a 10% little rules that are different. Even between Portuguese and Spanish, there are little things that are different, but it's like 90% the same. I think the grammar is more similar than the vocabulary, and the vocabulary is over 80%. That's my impression. That's not a scientific answer. Okay, Steve, the political situation in Spain and Catalonia right now is very interesting. Do you think you'll ever get around to learning Catalan? You know, I would love to learn Catalan. When I was in Barcelona, I bought a book on the history of Catalonia in Catalan. I can basically read it. So then the only question is, you know, what would be the special motivation that gets me to learn Catalan? Because right now I'm kind of focused on Arabic, Persian, and eventually Turkish. If I was going to spend, let's say, 2 weeks in Catalonia, I would probably make an effort to learn Catalan just for that period. Okay, yeah, Lviv, Ukraine. Okay, here's the deal. I am flying into Kiev on the 17th of May. I will go down to Dnipro, where I will meet with these people. I've been supporting an NGO rather, it's a group of ladies who help the old and the sick and the young children and stuff in the sort of war zone. So I'm going to go with them, and they've been, you know, using the little bit of money that I send them to build playgrounds and schools and buy diapers for old people and reading glasses and a whole bunch of stuff. So then once I'm back from there, hopefully the war doesn't heat up, then I will probably make my way to Lviv, sort of call it the last week in May. Okay. Now, I'm learning Swedish. Do you recommend me to learn it by English so I can gain 2 languages, even though English is not my mother tongue? It depends. I mean, if you speak English well, why not? There's going to be more material available based on English, probably, than in your mother tongue. I don't know what your mother tongue is. But I would do that. I would do that, definitely. Sure, learn, if you speak a language well, you can learn a 3rd language using the 2nd language that you use well, and they both improve. Okay, Tagalog. Okay. Yeah, somebody said here, Mark said, how much interesting content can you find? Obviously, but in my case, sort of, Arabic and Persian. I was motivated for other reasons, and then I struggled to find interesting content. Okay. All right. Well, good. We've kept it a little shorter here. Did you create LingQ? How did it come to be? So my son Mark and I founded LingQ, and it's interesting. I've told this story before. I was learning Cantonese, listening to Chinese radio here in Vancouver, and heard about a Chinese immigrant who arrived at the airport and had all his savings. Some of these immigrants are very unwisely. They arrive with $10,000 in a bag. And so he had that money stolen at the airport, and this was reported on the news on this Chinese Cantonese radio station that I was listening to. So I contacted this Chinese organization and said, if apparently this person was in IT and in computer technology. I said, we will happily give this person a job. If it works out, he has a job. If it doesn't work out, we've helped him out, since he had this unfortunate experience on arriving in Canada. So we had this person with us for 6 or 7 months, realized that even though this person had a high score in TOEIC, test of English as whatever it is, TOEIC English exam, he really had a lot of trouble communicating. So we started developing this system because we did have computer expertise in the office. We were in the wood industry, the forest industry, and we were building software systems for sawmills, which is what he was working on with us. But we got some of our technical people to start developing a system to help him improve his English. He eventually went back to China, but then we tried to interest the Canadian government in this to help immigrants. Of course, the Canadian government is so bureaucratic, they were not interested. And then we decided to expand it into a multi-language platform. So that's the answer. If you had to learn a language from scratch without LingQ, what type of content would you use, is a question. If I don't have LingQ, I go and buy the usual starter books. Normally I would buy 2 or 3, Teach Yourself, colloquial, and spend a fair amount of time on those, going over the same material through 2 or 3 different books. And with the access to stuff that's on the internet, I'd go look around for, whatever's there. I would certainly focus on any reading material. And this is what I did for languages before LingQ. I would look for readers that had glossaries, because the one thing I would want to avoid is having to use a conventional dictionary, for the simple reason that every time you look something up, you forget it right away. And therefore, you need some kind of a system like LingQ, where you keep track of words that you have looked up and have a chance to kind of review them. You have a chance to see them again. You're reminded that you've seen them before. So essentially, it was my struggling with other methods of learning, conventional books, that got me into LingQ. So now, would you ever learn Dutch? Well, my wife and I played golf the other day with a couple from Holland. I'm sort of moderately motivated. I've had a look at Dutch at LingQ. It doesn't look very difficult. But again, it is a question of where to spend one's time. And so right now I'm focused on Persian and Arabic. Do you know any good podcasts with transcripts or books in Chinese? Well, when I was sort of refreshing my Chinese, when I was in Beijing, for example, there's lots of audio CDs, there's xiangsheng, there's audio CDs on history, on philosophy, on you name it, novels and stuff. So, I mean, get, for example, I know you can get some of the sort of early 20th century novels, you can get audiobooks and find the text online. Otherwise, you might want to look at YouTube, where you can import videos from YouTube into LingQ and study them on LingQ. So, you have to look around. Now, can probably explain better. Steve, do you know any good podcasts? So if you don't have transcripts, you should also look into this automatic transcription service. I guess you have to have enough of a demand to make it worthwhile, but for $20 or $30, you get 5 hours worth of transcription, and it's quite good. It even works for Arabic. Does your spouse learn languages as well? Yes, she does. Kind of more. She not as in depth as I do, but she's quite fluent in 5 or 6 languages. She, was born in Macau. Father's Chinese, mother is from Costa Rica. So some exposure to obviously Spanish, as well as obviously Cantonese. And then, she's learned Mandarin with me, because when I was learning Mandarin in Hong Kong, she'd come to the various get-togethers we had with the teachers and stuff. And then we lived in Japan, and we, travel in France quite a bit, and she speaks some French. And so she likes it, but she's not sort of a, fanatic like I am. Have you thought of updating your book or writing another one? I should. It's, again, a matter of finding the time. I should. I really should. Okay. You said once it isn't worth you listen to something without a transcript, but is it worth listening to radio on your smartphone because blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, I find it's, I can't say it has no impact, but when you're listening to something where you don't understand anything, I find it very tiring. And I'm not sure that that's as good a thing to do as listening to material where you have a chance of making it comprehensible. Don't forget, we always talk about comprehensible input. Some languages tests don't have speaking sections, so I don't know. Okay, thanks, I'll check it out. What do you think about sentence mining? I'm not quite sure what sentence mining is, but I kind of tend to feel that I know there are teaching methods that focus on sentences as a sort of core unit to learn. And I feel that it's phrases because the phrases repeat and the sentences tend to be more unique. So yeah, I'm not big into focusing on sentences, but different people have different approaches. Blah, 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 blah. Why do you think Duolingo is so popular? Because it's free, basically. Simple with public. Anki da. How long do you guys study your target language per day is a question. So right now I find that I'm spending probably 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening reading and linking. And then I will probably get in another hour of listening every day. And this is, half the week in Persian, half the week in Arabic. Okay. Language learning takes time. A few hours a day on a good day. Oh, here's I'm learning Japanese. From your experience, how much helped me in Mandarin and Cantonese? Because I understand kanji. Yeah, I mean, kanji is such a big obstacle in learning Chinese or Japanese that if you have sort of, tackled that issue in one language, then it really helps you in another. You know what the characters mean. You may have to learn new pronunciation, but structurally, of course, Chinese is very different from Japanese. So you still have to learn the structure, but you have 50% of the vocabulary pronounced somewhat differently, sometimes with slightly different meaning. And you know what the sort of ideogram, the graphic representation of those words is. So big help if you have kanji. Do you find you have a slightly different personality when you speak a foreign language? Yeah, to some extent, I think that's true. After how many known words do you really start to feel comfortable listening? If we're talking about listening to authentic, real content, I found the number is surprisingly high. So if I'm listening to, and typically nonfiction is easier than literature, but I think 30,000, 20, 30,000, bearing in mind that that number, known words number is going to have different meaning in different languages, depending on how much the language is inflected and stuff. But it's in that 30,000 range. But if you are, have a very limited range of discussion with someone, I think the mini stories really prepare me for sort of a limited, chit chat type of situation. But if I'm listening to anything of, significance, podcast, whatever, I need a lot more. All right. I think we're nearing the end here. We try to keep these to half an hour. Thank you very much. Let me just stop the screen sharing so that I can at least end up interacting with people. All right, here we are. So thank you very much. Please let me know what you're interested in. If you want me to focus on different aspects of language learning, of LingQ and stuff. Any other questions? Okay, how do you memorize vocabulary? What do you think about learning Chinese with pinyin through LingQ for someone whose goal is solely speaking and reading through LingQ? Well, I don't know how you can read just with pinyin. So you could use just pinyin if your goal is just to speak, but reading in Chinese means reading characters. How do you elevate yourself from intermediate to native? Okay, I've said this before. I don't think we become native, but we can become very, very proficient. And it's simply time. You just have to put in a lot of time listening and reading. And then eventually, as you're more and more comfortable because you understand more and more, then you can engage in more and more meaningful conversations with people. And eventually, to be like a native, you have to speak a lot. So the listening and reading builds up your potential. But if you really want to be, that high level of proficiency, you eventually have to get to where you speak a lot and even write a lot. Blah, blah, blah. How do you say it? Hi, Steve. I have a habit of learning bite-sized amounts of several languages. What do you think? Is it better to focus on just a 2 or 3? Well, obviously, if you are in the habit of learning bite-sized amounts of several languages, that means you like exploring languages. So if you like exploring languages, do that. If your goal is to become very proficient in 1 or 2, then you have to focus on 1 or 2. But there's nothing wrong with being a bit of a dilettante to get a flavor of how these different languages work, which I've been doing to some extent. I had a brief fling at, Romanian. I had a brief fling at Greek because I was going to those countries. Now those languages have lapsed, but I can go back there again. So it's really a matter of what you want to do. I can't really advise you there. But if you want to achieve a decent level in one, you got to focus for quite a while, like a year or something like that. Hard to figure out what vowels to use when reading new words in written Arabic. Okay, first of all, I read on LingQ, so I have my text-to-speech, and everything I read, I have the natural voice audio for. And of course, I know that the text-to-speech audio is not always accurate, but it's an indication of how the word is pronounced, what the vowels are. And because I find that the use of the haraka and that, it's clutter. And eventually I'm going to have to read without that. And when I find an article on Al Jazeera, it doesn't have that. So I've avoided that. But I am aware of what those little, diacritics mean. I tend not to use them. And it's not only an issue of the vowels, it's also an issue of where there's sort of certain consonants are kind of emphasized and you hang in there on those, muallam, etc. So, I tend to, my strategy is more to get used to the words. I see them, I know this words, I know how it's pronounced. And eventually, if I have enough listening and reading, most of the words that I encounter, I will have encountered before. And so I will know how they're pronounced, rather than relying on my ability to, decipher, decode. Although I try, and I get better in time. It's hard to figure out what buzz. Are you subscribed? No. I don't know what PewDP is. Would you rather speak 3-4 languages fluently or speak 30 languages but at a basic level? Who knows? I mean, both are valid. I don't know what PewDP is. What is PewDP? PewDP. I have no idea. Have you studied Esperanto? No. Who is the best polyglot you've ever met? Difficult to say, but there are some very good ones that show up at the Polyglot Conference. Richard Simcott, Luca Lamporiello, a number of them. I can't think. There are many good ones. What do you think of Scottish Gaelic? It's not something I'm about to study, not very many speakers, but obviously it's, for some people, that could be very interesting. I could heard clearly, understand English, but how can I enhance my listening level? Enhance your listening level by doing a lot of listening and reading, and try to listen to things and then read and then listen again. How long would you believe it would take for a fluent Spanish speaker to pick up Italian through LingQ? 3 months. How we can memorize a lot of sentences in a short period of time. I don't believe in memorization. Okay, That's it. Do you read 100s? No, no. Okay, I'm going to call it here. All right. Well, thank you very much. And look forward to the next one. Let me know what you'd like to have me talk about. And hopefully you're all working hard on your 90-day challenge. Bye for now.